What was that?
Well, we're doing some recording on some new equipment, so we're going to see how this episode sounds. We are doing episode 306, All Hallows Eve. And who are we? We are Vicis Interimo. 30 minutes to kill, more or less.
Were you waiting for me to say that?
I was waiting to see whether you jumped right on that
I'm
or not.
surprised we're recording already. You just jumped right in there.
With both feet.
You're not even going to say
and an arm.
Hello and welcome from Solvang, California.
Nope. Who cares about that? They'll only care if they see the pictures later.
Okay. Well, yeah. I care that we're out of town because my notes are at home, sitting on our coffee table. And I am very far away from them right now.
I don't think you're going to have a problem when it comes to talking about All Hallows Eve.
I took a ton of notes. There were things I wanted to remember.
Oh, that's so sad. Well, you know what? That means you're going to have a really exciting laid to rest when we do... what's the next one coming up?
Next week's episode.
Next week's episode is It Comes at Night.
Right.
So we'll have a lot to talk about then. I actually have some laid to rest for this show. Well, for the previous one. Are you okay there? You seem to be blinded by the light there.
Well, you're backlit with a really bright... I think the sun is going down right behind your head.
That's just my awesome of aura-ness. That dyslexia just kicks in at the worst times. That's my aura of awesomeness that's blinding you, I'm sure.
Okay.
Oh, this is a mess.
Anyway, I butted in when you were introducing the podcast. So.
Exactly. Yes. So let's get back to that.
Okay.
You are listening to the Vicis Interimo Show. 30 Minutes to Kill, More or Less, a horror entertainment podcast featuring horror, suspense, and psychological thrillers. I am your host, Michael Mad Saxon Jones, here with my lovely wife, Lori. Hi, Lori.
Hi.
At any rate...
you talked to me already.
The show generally contains 4 elements. That is a laid to rest, where we wrap up anything regarding previous shows. Then we have our movie review, I've already mentioned, All Hallows Eve. And, this is being recorded just before Halloween, no less. We then have Garbage In, Garbage Out, where we talk about any movies, TV, or anything we may have watched or enjoyed over the past week. And then we end with a Crawling Chaos, a topic or factoid that we've never covered on the podcast before. Sometimes silly, sometimes serious, always chaotic.
And do you have one for today?
I'm not sure that I do.
I think you should talk about really large birds.
Okay. Yes, I'll talk about birds then.
But first, laid to rest.
But first, there's laid to rest. So let's get on with that. So for laid to rest, I'm going to have to do a little bit more work on this because, first of all, laid to rest, the director of The Houses October Built Part 2 liked our podcast.
Hey,
I'm not sure if he saved it or not.
That's nice.
I'm probably thinking
he maybe didn't like it, but
he liked it before he listened to it.
He acknowledged it. Yay.
Well, we talked about the fact that we were excited or interested in seeing a second one because we wanted more of an explanation.
Because now, for those who didn't catch last week's podcast, we did the houses that October built.
Right.
Yeah.
And we, interestingly enough, liked it more than we talked about it, or liked elements of it. The more we talked about it? Okay, so here's my thing.
I liked it when we were watching it. There were a few... I'm sorry, this chair is really squeaky. That is not me making those sounds.
That's right.
We're in a motel, so, squeaky chairs, that's not a good thing. I'm sorry, you better talk.
Okay, I'm going to talk then. I'm going to say that I have to do a little bit more work because I'm going to tell you where to skip to avoid the spoiler that's coming right now. The spoilers. I've got 2 things to say about last podcast about the movie.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that we acknowledged them last week, so I don't want to give anything. And these are light spoilers, but, if you haven't seen the movie, we don't want to give anything away.
Okay.
All right, so here's the 2 things that I have to say. Did I write it down?
What are people supposed to do if they don't want to hear what you're saying?
Well, they're going to skip ahead, and I'm going to tell you, I'll possibly mention the show notes, and I'll mention it here after the fact.
What do you need, a minute, 2 minutes? What?
Not even a minute, not even that long. I will tell you how far to jump ahead. Jump ahead 30 seconds, jump ahead 60, whatever. I will tell you.
So that's what I'm waiting for. How far do we jump ahead?
I don't know. I have to see where this falls in the thing, and after I've edited.
Oh, you're going to edit. Oh, you're going to put your voice in there saying, now, please jump ahead 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay. You're going to be able to do all that from here?
I can do that.
Okay, because you're going to be editing from this makeshift studio in a motel room.
Right.
Okay.
All right, so here's the very brief. Anyhow, right. I forgot that the movie looped. When we sat down to watch it, you said we enjoyed it while we were watching it, and I absolutely forgot, because the beginning of the movie shows you the end of the movie.
Right.
And it loops around there. And that's not a spoiler necessarily, but I would hate to rob anybody else of that same satisfaction or joy that I got when I went, oh yeah, duh, I forgot that I was watching and it was going to come back to this point.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
it starts at the end.
Right. So it involved me enough while watching it to forget that.
Oh,
the suspension of disbelief that whatever, you know what I mean? I was taking this trip and I'm like, oh, well, they already told me it was going to end like this. I completely forgot. So that
You'd forgotten.
I'm not sure how much of a spoiler that is. It's just light, though. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to rob somebody else.
It's not really a spoiler because I remembered seeing that, so I knew where we were going.
Okay, see, I didn't. I was totally enthralled in the story or enraptured with it. I still didn't know if what I was seeing was actually really what it appeared or if there was something else going on. Gotcha. Okay. And that's the other thing that I was going to say is if you watch the beginning of the movie, it also tells you who finished the movie or who was responsible for editing it. One of the problems that you've mentioned in the past with found footage films is, okay, it's found footage, but then who edited the movie together?
Oh.
The very beginning of this, they tell you who finished the movie, and I'm not going to go any more than that. So like I said, it's light spoilers.
I was going to say, that's not really what you're saying isn't even really
a spoiler?
I don't think so.
Oh, well, whatever. I don't want to...
I'm not sure it's worth
mentioning.
No, I mean, worth telling people to skip over this or whatever.
Anyway. Whatever. All right. Anyhow, maybe it matters to nobody else but us, but that's the kind of stuff that in a movie, if you can get us to think about it and concentrate on those things, I think you've done a good job. That's my opinion.
Okay.
As a movie aficionado, a buff, part-time, I don't know, you know what I mean? Never mind. You know what? I'm going off track here. So let's just get straight to All Hallows Eve.
Babysitting on Halloween night? That's just asking for trouble.
Yeah, tell me about it. It's already been quite an eventful evening. Some creep slipped a videotape into Timmy's candy bag while we were trick-or-treating.
A videotape?
You should see what's on it. I'm turning it off. It's too violent for the two of you.
Do you think that clown was real?
No, it's just make-believe. Demons, witches, monsters, that doesn't exist.
Please! The killer's out here is following me!
Who's following you?
He's a man. He's in a clown costume.
You got him on?
Okay, so All Hallows Eve was a 2013 film.
See, it says 2013, but I saw like 2015 on it. I wonder if it got held for a little bit.
I have no idea.
Independent. Anyhow, I'm sorry. Go ahead and tell me what it's about.
Yeah, don't be trying to derail the show again. You can look it up.
Okay.
All right. While babysitting two children on Halloween night, a young woman finds an old VHS tape in the kids' trick-or-treat bag. The tape features 3 tales of terror, all linked together by a murderous clown. As the night goes on, strange things begin to occur in the house.
Okay, so we've talked about anthologies not necessarily being your thing, or maybe we haven't seen enough of them. This is an anthology. Do you have any general thoughts about that before I start going into my notes that I remember to bring with me?
Why didn't you grab mine?
I had so many other things on my mind at that point.
I spent 2 days packing up for this trip and making lists and remembering everything, and I did such a great job, and that was just like the one thing that I forgot.
Well, I didn't.
You packed a half hour before we left.
Say, I didn't have time for that. I spent my 30 minutes packing chores.
I tell you.
I'm sorry. The movie.
What about it?
Anything that you have to say initially before I start giving my stilted opinion of it?
Why don't you start?
I'll start then.
Mister, I'm sitting here with a handful of notes.
It was, I want to say it was bad, it was awful, it was terrible, but it still worked. It had, so there were a lot of things for me to pick apart. As far as the acting felt stilted, parts of it felt slow.
I need my notes.
But yet it got directly into the story.
Okay, well, the reason why I'm having you start first, because I was hoping some of your notes would help me remember what I wanted to say. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about the acting. Mm-hmm. Okay, so as it said, the movie starts... it's a lady who's babysitting 2 kids, and I say lady, usually it's a teenager. Right. But I was like, oh, this lady's old enough to be their mom, but it sounds like she's friends with their mom.
It sounds like a friend or an aunt. I thought it was an aunt or somebody that was, it wasn't your typical teenage babysitter.
Right. So I kind of like that. I'm like, okay, an older, someone who should be more responsible, which she wasn't. But the kids are back from trick-or-treating, and this VHS tape is actually in the little boy's bag. Yes. And boy, that kid, he needed a timeout in the corner. He was kind of a little jerk, but he wanted to watch it. I think they said the girl was 10, and he was, which I wasn't sure if the age quite fit, but the boy was a little younger.
Was to be younger anyhow, yeah.
Yeah, so, anyway, he wants to watch it, and she's like, no way, some sicko could have put this in your bag. And
who knows what it's going to be.
Yeah, and the kid is like, it's mine, and I should be able to, blah, blah, blah.
Our parents are just going to let us watch it anyhow.
Yeah, so they watch it. The kids actually just watched the first one. Mm-hmm.
And it felt like...
She watches the others by herself.
An art house horror film, that first segment with the witches.
See, I had all these notes. I had notes about you mentioned the acting. Right. The initial... the main story, the lady and the 2 kids, there was some kind of funky acting going on there. But I think it seemed intentional, and I really loved it.
Okay, because that's what I was saying about it being all these things that I could nitpick about it.
It was kind of quirky and funky.
Well, here's what I wrote. The first thing I wrote was, has the 80s feel. As I'm writing that, you said, this feels like a 70s horror flick.
And I'd written 70s/80s because I couldn't quite, I remember what my notes looked like. And I don't have them here.
I could blame it on dyslexia then. I said 80s or 70s. I guess switch the numbers anyhow.
Okay. But it even the way that it was filmed, like there were a lot of things about it that I liked, and it had a really weird nostalgic feel to it, even though like they had, smartphones and stuff, or cell phone. Right. So that's always kind of weird, because then it brings you back like, oh yeah, this is a modern story we're doing here.
Right. Well, to me that feels like directors and producers, the people doing the movies, are just kind of a nod to the nostalgia of them and the movies that they saw.
I think so. Because then they watch the 3, well, they don't all watch them, but there's 3 films on the tape, and the first one, absolutely what you said, I was like, oh geez, what is this?
I would liken it to Suspiria. a little bit.